See, I think that St. Gregory and St. Basil are very key for the times we're living in because they have such a beautiful friendship between them to where they'd say they would become one. And we can easily see how, homosexual community may take such a relationship and say they must have been gay. Just like they say with Jonathan and David and Jesus and John, the beloved, and Ruth and Naomi. Anytime they see intimacy and friendship, they kind of get it confused with sexual intimacy.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? And so it's so interesting when you really recognize this, that they're missing out because they're getting the concupiscence of the flesh mixed in with
It's like they have a wound.
friendship.
They have a need, in a wound, and they want to be known and loved in the depths of who they are, and so
And
they seek it in another, and seek it in that friendship, and for them, like you said, it's more carnal than it is.
right,
Yeah.
because they're not recognizing how Christ can fill that deepest ache, that infinite longing. And so for Basil and Gregory, their friendship was centered on Christ and Christ's love. And so Christ, the infinite love of Christ was filling their hearts, and their friendship was caught up in that with Christ at the center, Christ in the fullness of his truth. Whereas when someone enters into a homosexual relationship, a disordered relationship with another, Christ is not at the center. And they're trying to sate that deep ache with something finite, with the other person, with this relationship with another. And for some reason, they're not opening themselves to this truth of who Christ is. And that's why they can't understand how Jesus and John the Beloved could have such a intimacy that's so pure and holy.
Right.
Or Ruth and Naomi, or
Right.
David and Jonathan, or Basil and Gregory.
I believe you're right that every time that they may see a relationship that is really pure, they can misconstrue that relationship and think, and
Right.
their
They project.
Yeah.
They project their own
they can think
need,
that it's right.
and their own understanding of it, and their own disordered understanding of it
Right.
onto others. And that's why you often hear them say, "Oh, well, you must be gay too." Like if you're a religious or if you're
Right.
consecrated to God, they can't fathom that because of the wound in their heart that prevents them from transcending and recognizing that God heals, and God is our divine lover, the one who sates that deepest ache and longing. And that is certainly why Gregory and Basil, that was the center of their lives, and their friendship was only helping them to go deeper in their profound communion with God as their divine lover.
Yes, they said to each other that they longed to just be called Christian.
Yes.
They wanted to be Christian. They wanted the others to see Christ in them.
Right.
And how could you see Christ if you're looking always at the banal, if you're always looking
Right.
to the flesh and you're not going beyond?
Right.
How can you see Christ's heart if all we do, is just look at him in the flesh?
And you're not being called forth in the fullness of who we are created to be as children of God.
Right.
We lost our dignity and identity through the fall, but Christ came to restore that. And so
Yes, and Mary played a huge part in that, didn't she?
Of course, and she is all pure. Mary is the one that helps us to have that purity, and this is why the Desert Fathers will say our focus, our aim in the Christian life should be purity of heart. And ultimately, it's communion with God is the final goal. Heaven, communion with God is the final goal. But our aim to help us to stay on the straight road is purity of heart. They say just like someone who's shooting an arrow or practicing a rifle will have a target that they always try to hit, and it helps them to focus on what they're aiming at.
Right.
And for us, our target, we aim at purity of heart in our life. And that's what draws us to communion with God, as we read in Beatitude, blessed are the pure of heart, for they will see God.
Yes, and so we must pray for our brothers and sisters who struggle with that same-sex attraction,
Or
so,
with any
or with any
sexual
fornication, any promiscuity.
promiscuity,
Yes,
pornography, anything other,
yes,
masturbation.
exactly, exactly. So, so that they can redirect that towards the heavenly realities, rather than just focus on right what is in front of them.
Yes.
You see, it's very difficult for us when we have access to so many gadgets that just fulfill us at the moment, and we're always just looking, and it's just for the next gratification. So it's very, very hard for us to transcend the natural to the supernatural.
You know, it's so interesting that you say that, because as I've been studying the Desert Fathers and St. John Cassian, he speaks of the 8 vices, the one of them being acedia that's added there. But the first one is gluttony. And the reason so is because all of the others follow, and most everyone does struggle, he said, with gluttony. And that is what entices the flesh to be more open to even other fleshly sins. So yes, let us ask Saint Gregory Nazianza and Saint Basil the Great to intercede for us.
Amen.
Amen. Holy Mother, during this new year, we renew our consecrations to you and ask that you intercede for us throughout this year.